Hey guys, welcome to Did You Get That on Film? On this podcast, we deep dive into horror movies, and so it is full of explicit content as well as spoilers. Please be advised. Now, let's get to the show.
Here we are with another episode of Did You Get That on Film, where we talk about characters in horrible situations that we would never find ourselves in. I am here with you, DP, again, with my co-host, somebody who knows that when they are killing, we vacate the premises. My girl, Ruth.
Hello.
And what are we talking about today?
Well, today we are talking about Sleepaway Camp.
Ooh.
I know. So this is Sleepaway Camp. This was written and directed by Robert Hiltzik, and it was released in 1983. So it's a throwback.
40 years.
That is right. Yes. So this is actually going to be a bit of a special episode. So the movie was released on November 18th, 1983. So we are actually going to be celebrating the 40-year anniversary. So by the time you guys are hearing this, it should be just about that time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 40 years of Sleepaway Camp. So Sleepaway Camp is one of three, right? There's two sequels to this movie. Four. Oh, Lord.
3 80s trilogies, and I think one is a requel. It's like Return to Sleepaway Camp 4. I think it was a requel before requels existed.
Man.
Yeah.
So
Man.
So let's just jump right into it because this one is a doozy. It's a lot. It has a lot going on.
Yes.
Definitely has that 80s charm to it, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie opens up with two kids. We have a boy named Peter and a girl named Angela. They're lounging on a boat with their father, and there's some teenagers that are water skiing in the area. And one of the teenagers, this very, very annoying girl, asks to drive the boat that's pulling another girl. So she's severely underqualified to do this, right? So we're seeing this happen off to the side. And then the boat that the father and the kids, Angela and Peter, are on, it capsizes. They're in the water, but it's just as this teenage girl comes barreling towards them. What follows is the most bizarre boat crash scene I've ever seen. The boat slides over the father's head. It's really crazy.
It's very strange. It's very how can we show this without showing any blood? It'll just hit him over the head, but it won't cut his head off. It'll just be he got hit by the boat.
Right. When in all actuality, this would have decapitated this man.
Immediately.
Straight up. But this boat crash leaves the father dead and one of the children. Now, they do not show you which child dies. They just show you one child still kind of treading water, swimming away. It's the back of their head, and a torn up life vest for another child. So we're just left to assume that one of the children is dead. So that's kind of just the soft opening.
That was the soft opening, and that was the one only scene of this girl boat driver who she gave her all. And
yeah, so this is the girl where they were you have one shot. One fucking chance.
And you had one chance. She's in the mirror, she's ready?
Stop. And then, so they were action, and everybody else in the scene is totally silent, right? So the father, they do show this very briefly. The father is there with his partner. It's not his husband. They never say it's his husband, but it is his partner. Even the partner is just silent. This girl is giving I mean, like, you would think that she just watched her own mother being trampled. She's hysterical, screaming, crying.
She's screaming.
Like,
And
oh my God.
it's distracting as fuck.
Right, you can't really feel the weight of the scene because this girl is just fucking screaming. It's so crazy. Well, fast forward 8 years, and we now see a teenage Angela. We are to assume that Angela is the child that survived this boat crash. We meet her, and we meet her cousin, Richard, aka Ricky, our favorite, as well as Angela's aunt, Ricky's mother, Dr. Martha, who has presumably adopted Angela after this horrific boat crash.
Right.
We learn that they are both preparing to go away to summer camp. It's a sleepaway camp called Camp Arawak. And Dr. Martha is a fucking psycho, okay? This woman...
She on them Percocet, Molly Percocet.
Right. She has a lot going on. She's on another planet. But she hands the kids over these signed physical forms, and she really makes it a point of telling them to just like not reveal how they got these forms. So that's like a red flag, right?
Yeah.
We arrive at the camp, and all the kids are like getting off their buses, and they're running and they're having fun. And it cuts over to some of the camp employees, the kitchen staff. And for some reason, this camp has just decided to employ a straight up hardcore pedophile named Artie. Artie is the camp cook. He says some very alarming things, like he calls the kids baldies, which is so gag worthy. He also says things like there's no such thing as too young. And everybody around him is just really kind of okay with this pedophile rhetoric. It's super bizarre. They really just like laugh it off. And some of these kids are like 8.
They're young.
They're very young. Angela is supposed to be 13.
They're teenagers, but they're young teenagers.
Yes. And they look it. So we get back to Angela and Ricky, and we learn that Angela is painfully shy and she doesn't speak. And we also learned that last year, Ricky hooked up with a girl named Judy. And apparently over this past year, she has grown boobs. So now Judy is the talk of the camp.
Show them titties.
Right. So then we get to meet Judy. And Dante, why is this a 45-year-old?
Why? They're like, she grew breasts over the summer. I'm like, the bitch aged 20 years over the summer. Of course she grew breasts.
Right. This is an adult woman. And I say that, I'm like, no offense to this actress, okay? This actress is, in the movie and in real life, allegedly, she is only 15, right? Anybody that watches this movie, you would be hard-pressed to convince them that this is just a 15-year-old girl, because she is...
Not.
she's not. But we also get to meet some camp counselors, Meg and Susie, who are older kids. While everybody is getting settled in their cabins, Judy and Angela are in the same bunk together. And for some reason, Angela just like cannot stop staring at Judy. And I'm not talking about a side glance, hoping that she wouldn't notice. Angela is dead on, straight-faced, in this girl's face, just staring at her. I don't even think she's blinking.
Like Michael outside the window.
Right. It's a serious stare. And so this obviously causes some friction between Angela, Judy, and Meg, who is like Judy's ride or die, even though she's a camp counselor. And I thought this was very weird. Why did you think Angela was staring at her like that?
We'll have to discuss it at the end.
Okay, so just a caveat to the people that are listening. So this movie has, I would say, arguably one of the biggest plot twists in a horror movie. I mean, like, imagine on a level of I See Dead People. That's what this movie is giving. So because we're doing deep dives into movies, we do try our best to not spoil too much when things are happening. So we can table this and come back to it after. So at lunch, we meet Ronnie, who is another camp counselor, and he's super sweet. He's probably the nicest person in this entire movie. But Ronnie, like, wears underwear, but calls them shorts, and the camp is just like, okay with this. They couldn't be any shorter.
Ronnie got his Gucci Daddy shorts off.
He does. That's an understatement. He has to be chafed. He can't be wearing underwear. It's just a lot going on. So we notice that Angela is having a hard time adjusting at camp. So they've been there at this point about 3 days. And Angela is kind of homesick, I guess. So she just has not been eating. And this really bothers Meg. And Ronnie offers to take Angela to the kitchen to find some better food, find something that she might like, maybe some ice cream. Well, unfortunately, Ronnie takes Angela directly to Artie, the rampant pedophile. And then he gets a call, so he has to leave her there. So, of course, Artie, the pedophile starts to pedophile immediately.
Wastes no time.
So he brings Angela to the walk-in refrigerator and he unzips his pants in front. I mean, it's insane. But Ricky walks in, and throughout this whole movie, what we're going to learn is one thing about Ricky. He is going to ride for his cousin. Ricky is the definition of a ride or die. And we love that about him. Ricky walks in and he catches Artie about to sexually assault Angela.
Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Oh, that's another thing about Ricky. Ricky has a foul mouth. Ricky will curse more than he'll speak regular words in this movie.
He curses so much.
He does. So Ricky confronts Artie, and Artie threatens Ricky to keep his mouth shut. And Ricky's like, okay, whatever. He takes Angela and they run away. Because they're kids, right? I mean, he's like, I don't know what the fuck I saw. So we fast forward to Artie, who is cooking corn in the most ridiculously tall, unsafe pot I've ever seen.
That pot's 6 foot.
It is a literal, without putting too much on it, I really truly think that this pot is at least 4 feet tall. It's so ridiculously dumb and unsafe. And so they're going to use this pot to cook corn in, but they need it to boil, the water to boil. Imagine how fucking hot this water has gotten.
And how long it's been boiling.
Right. So because the pot is so tall, Artie needs to stand on a chair to see inside of it. While he's standing over this pot, we get a POV of the killer who comes up behind him and pulls a chair out from under Artie. And as this is happening, Artie pulls down this 4-foot pot of water on top of him, and Artie is severely burned. I mean, crazy burned.
It's so nasty.
His face is totally burned. His arms are totally burned. He spends the next 120 seconds just screaming, and they really zoom in on his face so you can see the agony that he's in.
He looks like, that candy, and it's peanuts and it's red. It's
I do know what you're talking about. Stop, that's so fucking gross.
What's it called?
I can't remember what it's called, but they sell it at the corner store.
That's exactly what he looked like.
Unfortunately, that is what he looks like because he's boily. It's awful. Shout out to the people that did the makeup, the practical effects, because the shit looks like it hurts.
It's a peanut patty. They call it that.
A peanut patty.
It's a peanut patty.
Yeah, just Google it when you're listening to this. You're going to look at it, and that's going to give you a really good indication of what the fuck this man looked like. But he has to be taken to the hospital. But this is where we get our first look at the camp director, Mel. And we learn very quickly that Mel is a piece of shit.
If Julie 45, Mel 95.
This man is practically melting. I mean, and I know that we're not trying to sound ageist, but his age will come up later, and we just want you to know how elderly this man is. As Artie is being wheeled away, he's not dead, but he might as well be because shit. Mel is taking his time to bribe Ben, the new cook, and the rest of the kitchen staff to say nothing about this accident to the campers so that the campers don't mention it to their family, so the family doesn't know that there's been this horrific, OSHA should be called, but Mel is covering it up. So we get some scenes of Ricky enjoying camp life, playing pranks and things, and then we get to this very long baseball scene.
Oh my God.
We could have done without this baseball scene, but it does give us some amazing dialogue from Ricky.
Some of our favorite quotes.
Some of our favorite quotes ever, not just in this
film.
movie. Right, it's just ever. So Ricky is playing against Bill, and we just don't like Bill, so don't feel bad for him. But Ricky says things like, "This guy blows dead dogs," to which Bill replies, "Eat shit and die, Ricky." To which Ricky replies,
"So quick, eat shit and live, Bill."
The wit on this boy. I mean, like, he has such a command of insults, curse words. It's amazing. Eat shit and live, Bill. It's mwah, chef's kiss. It's amazing. We love Ricky. So after this entirely too long baseball scene that we get, we fast forward to nighttime at the camp, and every night they have a social type event where kids go, they socialize, you can buy candy and shit. They're at this social, and there's some guys that are trying to talk to Angela. So it...
Angela is eating this.
Wait.
She eating a candy bar?
Yo, I know that you probably don't think that sounds very funny. She's eating this candy bar like a fucking psychopath. She's sitting up like ramrod straight. She is staring off into the distance because remember, she doesn't talk. She's eating this fucking chocolate bar like she's a robot that's been programmed to eat chocolate. It's just like, it's so soulless. When you see this scene, you're like, oh yeah, that's a murderer right there. So she's eating this chocolate at this social, and the guys
they come up to her.
Stop, because I'm trying not to laugh.
It's funny because they're like, hey Angela, why you so fucked up? It's like
the dialogue.
It's so real for like teenagers. It's just like, hey Angela, why you so fucked up?
And Angela she's
staring.
She's just staring at them. She says absolutely fucking nothing. And so they start bullying her, right? Because she's not talking. They're like, this is weird. And then as this is happening, Ricky walks in.
It's like they said, yo, he walked in with that fucking Pharrell hat on. And it's so big and it's so random.
But he's also wearing like just like a t-shirt. And
he's wearing
like it doesn't
like
match.
pants. And it's just a big ass like Pharrell hat. And he just like walk in, and Ricky is a little dude.
This hat is swallowing Ricky. I mean, the hat is really huge. And when we say Pharrell hat, y'all, please just go to Google and type in Pharrell hat, and what comes up, it'll have y'all in stitches, because this is exactly the hat that Ricky is wearing in this scene. Like, Ricky walked so that Pharrell could run at the, 2017 VMAs. And so Ricky, again, being a ride or die for his cousin, jumps in to protect her. And so then they just start fighting. And they're just by fighting, I mean, they're rolling on the floor.
And this happens a lot in the movie, though. It'll just be all the boys will just pile on each other. I guess it's supposed to be a fight, but it's just real. They just kind of all lay down on each other.
Yeah, they kind of just all start rolling around, rubbing each other. And I know that we talked about this before, but if at any point in this movie it de-evolved into a gay porn, I'd be like, that makes sense.
I saw this coming.
I saw this coming. In my opinion, it being a gay porn is less shocking than the actual ending of the film. Yes. And this movie in general has a lot of I know that, people might be like, oh, why are you guys sexualizing everything? No, this movie's very sexual. Please do not get it twisted. We're not making this movie sexual. It made itself quite sexual, and it comes up a lot. Because they're kids, and they're struggling with their sexuality. So while Ricky is on the floor fighting for his life among these bullies, Angela just sits there and does absolutely nothing. She doesn't run to get help. She doesn't tell anybody. She doesn't say, hey, stop it. She doesn't pull anybody off Ricky. Angela's just oh, well, thanks, Ricky. Ricky's definitely more of a ride or die for Angela than Angela is for him. But Then we get a scene with Paul talking to Angela, and Paul is Ricky's friend. So Paul and Ricky have been friends for like 3 years, I think that they say. So they hang out at camp, and now he's meeting Angela for the first time, and he's just being really nice to her. And Angela really likes this because nobody else at this point, imagine, like, has been nice to her at all. So for once, Angela actually seems really interested in what Paul has to say, and this prompts Angela to say her first word of the entire film. So Angela's pretty into Paul, and Paul is into Angela. So after the night of the social, we get some more scenes of camp shenanigans, and the boys are really trying to get the girls to go skinny dipping. Well, you know, I put too much on that. They're not really trying to get them to go skinny dipping. The boys are like, do y'all want to go skinny dipping? And the girls are like, no. And they're like, great. And they just go skinny dipping together.
Billy is so aggressive about going skinny dipping.
The way that they shoehorn this skinny dipping scene in here is really crazy. Billy's like, you know, I bet like another boy suggested inviting the girls. Billy was like, no, I meant us. So we see these two kids, Leslie and Kenny, and they go off canoeing. Now, Kenny is one of the boys, along with Billy, that was bullying Angela at that night's social.
Kenny is the boy. Kenny is the boy that said, hey, Angela, why you so fucked up?
Why you so fucked up? Yes. So Kenny started bullying shenanigans and got into this scuffle with Ricky. So he's definitely picked on both of them. So they're in this canoe, Kenny and this girl, and Kenny is not interested in girls, right? So let's cut the bullshit here. So he's not trying to like make out or anything. He's just trying to get this girl in a canoe so that he can tip it, which he does. And Leslie falls in the water and she's like, fuck off, and just leaves.
He's rocking the boat. I've been so pissed. I would have kicked his ass.
I know. I would have struck him because this is mad annoying. And now I'm all wet and I have to swim back to shore. And now I have to take a shower because I was in this nasty ass lake water. It's a lot. Kenny's a lot. He's annoying. Whatever. Now he's alone and he decides to go underneath the canoe. Like he comes up underneath in the air pocket under the canoe. And so while he's alone there, this is setting up the first kill of the movie. I mean, Artie didn't die, but you know, I mean, he might as well. But this is the actual first on-screen kill. While Kenny is fucking around under this capsized canoe, we see a figure pop up and you just see the back of this person's head. It's just somebody with brown hair. And they do this a lot in the movie because this movie is really set up to be like a whodunit type deal. But Kenny sees the person. He's like, oh, it's you. You know, it's like, what are you doing here? Type one of those types things. So it's like he recognizes the person, but we don't see the person. Well, this person pushes him under the water and drowns him. His body is found the next morning by a counselor, and his body's like really fucked up. And he has like a snake that comes out of his mouth. It's just like, it's a lot.
Wouldn't it have been pitch black underneath that boat?
That's what I'm thinking. Dante, that is such a good fucking... We have the movie's lighting, but it would have been pitch black because it would have been pitch black out there anyway. On the lake, right?
That's why I would have been so goddamn mad.
That he tipped the boat? Yeah.
That he tipped the boat.
He got his comeuppance for sure because he's drowned. But yes, you're absolutely right. They're under a capsized canoe in the middle of a totally dark lake in the middle of the night. Yeah. He wouldn't have been able to see.
What a counselor say?
Well, I think that maybe the kids are like sneaking off and doing this, right? I don't think the counselors know. So the cop that comes after they find Kenny's body, he determines that the kid must have drowned because there are no bumps or bruises on him. And I was like, we must not have been looking at the same fucking body. Because I was like, this kid looks horrible. How can you determine how he died? Half his lip is missing. And I'm sure that like fish probably ate him, but you don't know that. You're just a fucking beat cop. It was just very weird, but Mel is really pushing this narrative, right? The camp director, because he's a piece of shit, but he just really doesn't want the camp to close, right? Because Mel is getting money for this, I guess. So Ronnie, though, in his super teeny tiny shorts, he doesn't agree He was like, well, Kenny was like a really strong swimmer. He's like, it just doesn't make sense to me that he would die that way. Mel's not having it. And so that's just like case closed on that. The campers immediately start activities. They don't give them any time to grieve. There's no like group counseling or anything. They just kind of tell them to just kind of go on about their business. And nobody really seems to care that Kenny is dead. But we see the girls and they're playing volleyball. And Angela, we learn, never joins any of the activities. She just kind of always sits off to the side because Angela really doesn't want to be here. But we do see her and Paul talking again, and Angela legitimately seems happy when they're talking. But for some reason, this really bothers Judy and Meg.
Old bitch ass.
I know. It just like really bothers her. They're haters, though, for sure. So... And Paul invites Angela to go to that night's movie time with him. And we see them together after the movie. And they're holding hands. And Paul offers to walk Angela back to her bunk. And then they share their first... If there's anything like lower than G-rated, that's what this kiss is. It's so fucking G. But Angela's kind of... shocked by that, right? Yeah, she's like really kind of taken aback. She like doesn't say it, like she's just like, what the fuck?
And he was like,
can I have another one?
Did you already have one? Like,
I know. She's like, I don't really even know what just happened. Sure, I guess. Well, they share these two little peckish little G-rated kisses. But like Judy the hater cannot stand this budding relationship between Angela and Paul. Like she is boiling for some strange fucking reason. We've seen Judy talking to the older boys too, so there's really no reason for her to be this way. But I guess she's just like a bitch. So we cut to a scene in the boys' cabin where Ricky is playing pranks on this kid named Mozart. And they're like they're pretty innocent pranks. But Mozart, he gets some shaving cream on his face and he snaps. Mozart cannot fucking take it anymore. And he pulls out this big ass knife on Ricky. And he chases him around the cabin. And that's crazy, right? Like all the kids are laughing and stuff. But like that's Mozart. You should talk to someone. Like somebody should talk to him. Well, they don't. A camp counselor named Gino comes in and he takes the knife from Mozart. And he's like, I'm going to take this from you until the end of the summer. Remember that knife because Gino hides it amongst his things. But it comes up again later. So this is in the boys' bunk, Ricky's bunk. So the next day, we get a cute, heartwarming scene of Angela and Paul goofing off around the lake. And Judy can't stand it, of course. And so she tells Meg, who is a counselor. And then for some reason, Meg goes over to talk to Angela. And when Angela's not talking back, Meg just decides to like shake the shit out of her for some reason. It's very bizarre because you're a counselor. What are you doing? Well, luckily Ronnie steps in and Meg gets in trouble. And so this upsets Judy even more, right? Because Judy and Meg are like best buds. And so Judy then starts to really bully Angela. And she has this line where she calls Angela a carpenter's dream, flat as a board and needing a screw. And it's such a fucking 80s burn. Like, just like...
It's such an old woman's burn because what do you mean needing a screw? She's 12.
Right. What the fuck are you talking about? You old woman. Like, it's such a weird thing to say.
Fucking grossy Josie.
I know. We're all like virgins. What the hell are you talking about? Well... She's being like just such an asshole that this prompts Susie, the other camp counselor that's in the room. It causes her to just slap the shit out of Judy. And I was like, damn, they just really have no issue putting their hands on the kids at this camp. So then after that happened, Angela doesn't thank Susie. She just like, I'm going to go see Ricky now. And leaves. And I know that Susie's probably like, this bitch is weird. I shouldn't jeopardize my job over this psycho.
I really don't like Judy, so...
I know, she's been waiting to do that. So on the way, when Angela's going to see Ricky, there's some boys that include Bill and others They're standing on top of one of the cabins and they just start throwing water balloons down at Angela and they're hitting her all in the chest and stuff. And Ricky sees this happen and he goes ape shit. He has the longest profanity filled tirade.
He was like, I'm gonna kick your ass up and down this camp, you fucks.
He's
I was like, I love it. I love people get kicked their ass up and down somewhere. I love it.
I love shit like that. I love that. That's like Sid Haig talking, kick your ass up and down, so they put my boot all up in. It's just like just shit like that.
When they tell you what's gonna happen before it happens.
Yes. They give you the play-by-play so you're not sure when the shit happens. And, well, that's how Ricky talks. Ricky's like super crazy about it because he's a ride or die, right? Well, Mel, the camp director, he saw all of this happening and he punishes everybody involved. And I was like, well, damn, what the fuck did Ricky do? Like, he was just defending his cousin. Yeah, he said a few choice words, but like, I didn't think Ricky deserved to be punished too. But
shit, Mel was like, please stop cursing like that.
There really isn't much that we can say that would give y'all an idea of just how much he was cursing. Like, it's just, for a good, I would say 12 seconds, he says like 17 different curse words. Mel was like, for that foul fucking mouth, I'm punishing you too. So Angela is upset by all of this. This was all really traumatic to her. So we fast forward to Billy, who has to take a wicked dump, and that is a quote. And the rest of the boys in his cabin are going to play baseball. So now he's alone in the cabin, right? So as he goes to take this wicked dump, this is obviously the setup for the second kill of the movie. So as he's in the bathroom stall, somebody pushes a broom through the door handle. And so this locks Billy into the bathroom. There's a window above the toilet. Somebody takes the knife that Mozart was using earlier that Gino took from him. They use it to cut the window screen open. And then they dangle a beehive into the stall and then just rile up all the bees who come out. And Billy is then stung to death by bees.
It's crazy, though.
It's crazy because this is not like an ordinary bathroom stall that actually cares about your privacy. The gap, the hole underneath this bathroom stall is so large. I feel like he could have walked under it. Like he didn't, like his instincts.
Try.
Yeah, he didn't even try to get out.
No survival skills.
At all. Because I would have definitely dove under. But yeah, he's stung to death and they show the aftermath. It's like really gruesome. I mean, he must have been allergic to bees because it's crazy. So now this is obvious that this kid was killed, right? So Mel has had the luxury of saying like, Artie's was an accident. This one kid died by drowning. Well, no, everybody is upset by this murder. And so kids are leaving and Mel is upset by this. Mel feels like the camp is ruined, and apparently we don't ever get a really good idea of like how many kids there are at this camp, even after he makes this statement, but apparently there are only 25 kids left in the whole camp. And this includes Ricky and Angela, right? Because apparently some kids' parents don't give a fuck that there's a murderer in the camp. They're like, I already paid my money. I'm going on vacation. I don't have time for these kids at the house. So Mel is convinced that there's a killer on the loose in the camp, and he believes that he knows exactly who the killer is. So Mel is starting to kind of lose it. We get another heartwarming scene of Angela and Paul, and they're kissing, and they're playing around by the lake. Paul starts to try to get more intimate with Angela. And we kind of see her disassociate, right? And she starts to have this very bizarre flashback. So in this flashback, we see that Angela and her brothers, so Angela and Peter, they are peeking into their dad's bedroom. and he is in bed with his male partner. So they're watching them and they're just kind of like giggling, and the dad and the partner are just kind of sitting, laying in the bed caressing each other. And then we see a shot of Angela and her brother, and they're sitting on their bed in their room. And the brother, I really couldn't like figure out what they were trying to imply here, but the brother is pointing his finger at Angela, and the room starts spinning, like the camera's spinning for us, and his finger's like getting like closer and closer. And it's just, I didn't really quite understand what that scene was implying, but we do kind of get the sense that Angela is kind of struggling with her sexuality, right? Because I guess she's like, that's confusing because, like she's a girl, she saw her dad with another man, and then it's like her brother. So it's just kind of giving you the sense that Angela just kind of has some issues, like some some body issues, sexuality issues, and we'll get more clarity on that, I guess.
Yeah, she's young.
She's young, yeah. And she just has like a lot going on. She's also been through a traumatic experience. But so Angela then snaps back to the present and she runs away from Paul, right? And we can tell that she has some intimacy issues. And she's a child too, so she doesn't have to want to do these things. So we flash forward to the next day, and the kids are having this big game of capture the flag. And Paul confronts Angela about why she ran away the night before, because Paul is like, he's, in my opinion, coming on way too strong. Like, there are people being murdered. It's a summer camp. I don't really know you. Like, it's just...
It's kind of like all summer long, all year we've been like talking. It's like literally 2 weeks, a week or so has passed.
Right. Like the camp itself is only like 3 whole weeks.
You trying to fuck already? Like, you weird, dude. Like,
it's very weird, creepy. So Angela says she's just really not ready for that, which is totally understandable. I'm not Judy. Well,
speaking of a bitch.
No, speaking of this bitch. Judy, who kind of sees these seeds of doubt being sown in Paul, Judy takes this as an opportunity to ease in on Paul because she just hates Angela that much. So Ricky catches up to Angela and he's like, hey, why don't we cut through the woods? You can help me capture the other team's flag. We can win this, bring it home. Are you going to help me? I have been fighting for you this entire summer. The least you could do is help me win this fucking game of capture the flag. So Angela agrees. And so while they're cutting through the woods, they stumble upon Judy and Paul kissing. Now, this is fucked up for a couple of reasons.
On so many levels.
I know, because remember, Paul, you're supposed to be with Angela, right? Like, this is y'all summer together. You were just trying to get jiggy with her.
Na, 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 na.
Right. And then remember, Judy was with your friend, Ricky. Like, have you no loyalty at all to anybody?
To his dick.
Apparently so, because I'm not trying to be rude, but like Judy isn't even like all that, right?
And she's old.
she's an adult, so it's just... Paul is really fucked up for this one. So Angela gets upset and she runs off. And, Paul's like, oh,
yo,
no.
Paul, why you so fucked up, man?
Paul is fucked up. And then Ricky just looks at Judy and he's like, you're a real scumbag. And I was like, she really is. Bravo to Ricky, because he didn't get into an argument. He didn't ask her why. He didn't cry. He didn't get upset. He was just like, bitch, you're a scumbag. And it's like, good for you, Ricky, because that's exactly what she is. So later at the lake, we see Paul, and he's trying to apologize to Angela, but like, we don't need your apology. Paul, you fucking suck. But Judy comes up, and at the worst fucking time, and she reveals that Paul told her that Angela was a prude. Paul doesn't deny this or like tell Judy to leave Angela alone. He just walks away, and I'm like, Angela, girl, you deserve better, because Paul fucking sucks.
But he's been so nice to her all this time. She's probably like, he's so nice to me.
I know. And it's sad because he's like, besides Ricky, the only person at this whole camp who's been nice to her. Well, snakes. Judy and Meg take this time to bully Angela, and they bully her in the worst way because they decide to pick her up and they are going to throw her into the lake. Now, this is fucked up for a lot of reasons because one, you don't know anything about Angela, right? So you don't know if Angela can swim. So you could be throwing her in the lake to drown because neither one of you attempt to like jump in and save her, right? But additionally, because you don't know her, you don't know that her father and brother were killed in a boating accident in a lake. And that was very traumatic for her. And so Angela, who doesn't talk a lot, she's like screaming, right? She's like, please do not throw me in this lake. And to me, even if I was a bully, I would take that as a sign that like, damn, she's pretty serious, right? Maybe we shouldn't throw her in the lake. Well, they do. And so Ricky, her ride or die, is trying to run over and stop this from happening. But camp director Mel, who has become extra unhinged at this point, he is convinced that Ricky is the killer and Ricky is trying to ruin him and makes this point of saying you always run to her when she's in trouble or something like that. Like you're always trying to save her. He says this for a couple of reasons. I think maybe he is trying to get the audience to maybe suspect that Ricky might be the killer because so far, if it isn't abundantly obvious, the only people that are dying are people that have wronged Angela and Ricky in some way, right?
Right.
I think additionally, maybe in his mind, he is coming to the determination that like, I guess he's like, well, Angela can't be a killer and these people are the ones that are dying, so it must be Ricky, right? Like, I just have to assume that maybe he gave it some thought because the movie doesn't really show how he came to this determination.
He said he could see the hate in his eyes.
Yeah. Mel is a psycho, so you can't really take anything that he says seriously, but I do think that they're trying to maybe trip the audience up or like make the audience lean a certain way. So he breaks away from Mel and Ricky helps Angela out of the lake and we see these kids throwing sand at her and they're like laughing and Ricky takes Angela, he's trying to comfort her and Ricky promises Angela that they will not get away with this. He's like, we're going to get these bitches. And so I think this is another thing that's kind of making you think, oh, damn, is Ricky the killer? Just giving like little hints because at this point, we don't know who the hell the killer is.
No, we don't.
So we fast forward to that night and we see Meg, a teenage camp counselor, right? So I think Meg is supposed to be like 19 years old. She is supposed to be having dinner, and by dinner, we mean sex, with the camp director, Mel, who is a very elderly man.
He's old as fuck.
It's very bizarre and so fucking random. But she goes to take a shower in her bunk to get ready for this dinner date. But there's a line. So she decides that because so many people have left because of the murderers, that she's going to go take a shower in one of the empty bunks bathrooms. And this is setting up the third on-screen kill of the movie. So while Meg is showering, we see the killer enter the cabin. And while Meg's back is up against the wall of the shower, the killer stabs her, a la Scream 2, straight through the stall. Stabs her in her back with Mozart's knife from earlier, and then drags it all the way down the wall. So they like essentially slit her back from like the nape of her neck to like her butt. Like she's really split open. From the ruler to the tulip is what my grandmother would say.
From the ruler to the tutor.
So she's dead. She bleeds out. So meanwhile, Angela's still giving Paul the cold shoulder and he's begging her for her forgiveness. And I'm like, girl, please don't. And she asks him, where's Ricky? And Paul reveals that Ricky's sick and he's been lying down since dinner. So nobody's had eyes on Ricky this whole time. And so she's obviously very upset, and she just tells Paul to meet her at the waterfront that night after that night's social. And so Paul is really excited because he's like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna finally like have sex with this girl. Spoiler, that's not what happens. But there's these younger campers, and they are, I guess, some camp counselors have the night off that night, and some have to do some work and watch the kids.
It's very confusing.
But I guess there's like not a lot of campers left, so they can afford to do that. One counselor, Eddie, he has to work that night, and he has to work with some of the younger campers. And so they're taking this night to go camping actually in the woods, like sleeping bag camping under the stars. And so as they're out there, they're kind of going to sleep, but we see that prior to going to bed, they set up a fire and they have to get firewood. And Eddie brought a little axe with him in order to cut the firewood. And so they make it a point of showing that weapon. And so we see that after Eddie and these campers lie down for bed, two of the kids really want to go back because they don't feel well. So Eddie, he gets up and he decides like whether or not he should wake up these other 4 kids or just leave them there. And he decides to just leave them there because I guess he's like, well, I'll be right back. So he drives 2 of the boys back. And this is setting up. These are off-screen kills. Technically, we do see the aftermath of it, but it's kills like 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it's these 4 little boys. And so we get the POV while these little boys are sleeping of the killer coming up. And they take this axe that Eddie brought with him. And we don't actually see them being killed, but
they're dead.
They're dead. So Eddie will stumble upon their bodies later because the movie really it goes very fast at this point.
Yes.
Eddie's gonna stumble upon their bodies and they're like hacked to death, and he throws up. It's really crazy. That was a lot. These children. So cut to Mel, who's on the hunt for Meg because she didn't show up for their inappropriate dinner date. And Judy, who is in her bunk making out with a guy, tells Mel, oh, well, Meg went to that empty bunk to take a shower. And so he goes and Mel finds Meg on the floor with her back split open. And he's convinced that it's Ricky, right? And so now at this point, Mel has like totally lost touch with reality. And instead of calling the police, he's like, I have to stop him. He's staring off into the distance and he's like, I have to get back at him. He did this to hurt me. And so now I have to hurt him. And I was like, how the fuck would Ricky know that you were fucking this teenage girl?
Or cared.
Right. It's very bizarre. Meanwhile, back in the girls' bunk, so Judy she was hooking up with this guy, but this guy fucked off because he didn't want Mel to find him in there. So then she just starts like curling her hair alone. Now she's doing all of this in the dark because she is kind of skipping out on that night social. And she's like, well, if we turn on the lights, they're going to make me go to this social. So it's dark inside, but there's some lighting outside of the bunk, some really kind of harsh fluorescent lighting. And so while she's sitting on her bed curling her hair, we get this backlit view of the killer who opens the door. And so it's really tough because she's looking and she's like, hey, who's there? She can't tell who's there. But like looking at it, who did you think this was when they showed them?
Ricky.
It looks like Ricky, right? I don't think that you're supposed to see that.
Well, no, yeah, because the movie is like, oh.
It's from like fucking 1983. So now we have 4K TVs and things have been remastered and stuff. So it like looks really good. The lighting is a lot better. But I think in 1983, you're really not supposed to be able to see. It's just this person is supposed to be in total shadow. And so we'll talk more about that in a minute because it definitely goes into the final reveal of this movie. But when people are watching, it's definitely like a record stretch moment because you're like, wait, what? Ricky? What are you doing here?
Ricky!
It's a crossover episode.
every episode is a quote of episode. That's all we do. It's a quote of the fucking movie.
So we get this backlit shot of the killer, whoever this killer is supposed to be. The movie is trying to make it really ambiguous, right? Like you're not supposed to know at this point who the killer is. So let's just pretend that this was not revealed to us. Like this was the VHS in 1983 and we cannot tell who it is. So it kind of looks like a boy build, but they kind of have longer hair. So you're like, damn, is that Ricky? Could it be Angela? I don't know. So Judy can't tell who it is at all. So this is the 8th kill of the movie. So the killer walks up to Judy and they do that thing that they've been doing the whole movie where they're like, oh, it's you. What do you want? So we know that Judy, it knows her killer. So we see the killer's fist cold cock Judy in the face. Right. Wait. How did they hit Judy? I don't know if y'all can hear that at home. It's so fucking loud. It makes that noise in the movie. It's so fucking loud, right on her fucking chin. Whoever the killer is punches the shit out of Judy, right? Punches her so fucking hard, she's out cold. So then they put her on the bed, lay her down, prone on the bed, and they put a pillow over her face, and then they take her curling iron. And this was a very controversial scene in 1983, so they don't show it, but they take this hot curling iron and they shove it up her vagina. So apparently in the original movie, they were going to show her body afterwards with the curling iron in her vagina, but I think it was just way too graphic. The Motion Picture Association wouldn't let them release that because it's supposed to be a child too, right? Like this girl.
Right.
I'm saying supposed to be. The actress apparently really is 15. I know that we're joking about her being 45, but she is supposed to be 15. So that was too much. So Eddie's discovered these 4 campers. Everybody is like horrified at this point because Mel's like, Meg's dead. Eddie's throwing up because these campers are dead. From this point, things move in hyperspeed. So cutting back to the camp and the night's social is ending and Ricky is getting there late. So Ricky has not been seen at this point. And he's like, well, I want to get some candy. And the camp counselor that's at the door, he's like, no, you missed it. It's over. And he's like, no, the dinner was like, the dinner made me like really sick because it was really bad. And the camp counselor's like, yeah, it was pretty awful. So he lets Ricky go in and get some candy. But as Ricky is walking out, Mel grabs him. And Mel is like insane at this point, right? Like Mel's totally lost it. He drags Ricky into the woods and just proceeds to like slap the shit out of him. Slap him essentially, like I guess he's calling it to death. He's totally lost it. And so he's like, oh no, I really have to get out of here so nobody discovers that I slapped this child to death. And so this is setting up kill number 9. As Mel is then trying to run away from where he just bludgeoned Ricky, he stumbles upon the actual killer and he's on like the archery field. And so we see the killer pick up a bow and arrow. Mel's like, oh, it's you. It can't be you because he just like beat Ricky to death. Well, the killer shoots him with a perfect bullseye shot through his Adam's apple. So Mel is dead. By this point, all the camp counselors and the police know that the kids are dead. Everyone's on full alert. They split up and they're like, well, we are still missing Judy, Angela, Paul, Ricky. They're like, we need to find these campers. So along the way, they find Ricky, who is hurt, but Mel didn't kill him, but he is like
fucked up.
Yeah, he's fucked up. They find a dead Meg, and we see that Paul is waiting by the lake for Angela because Paul is like, rain or shine, murders or no.
Show me them titties.
Right.
Show them titties.
Right. So Paul is like, I'm not leaving camp this summer without losing my virginity. Is like, that's basically his main focus. So Angela shows up as promised. And when she sees him, she tells him to get naked. They're going for a swim. Paul is hyped. He starts ripping those clothes off. We as the audience kind of feel like, damn, Angela's kind of not being normal, right? Like she's like totally dissociated. She's like, take your clothes off. Well, the search party ends up stumbling upon them. As they're walking, this is Ronnie and Susie, the camp counselors, and Ronnie's like, he could hear some humming as they're walking up, and they're like, hey, is that Angela and Paul? And so Angela is sitting down on the beach, and she has Paul's head in her lap, and she's just like humming a song, and she's stroking his hair. And in this very moment, we get a flashback, and it's Angela's insane Aunt Martha. And it's revealed that Angela's insane Aunt Martha always wanted a little girl, but she had Ricky, and then after her husband left, she really had to abandon the idea because I guess she was just like, I'll never have kids again. But then her brother is killed in this boating accident, and she gets to adopt his surviving child, presumably Angela. If you thought that, you were wrong, because Angela is not the child that survived this crash. It's the little boy, Peter. And she decides that she doesn't really care. She is going to raise Peter as if he is a little girl. And this obviously very much fucks Peter up. So this entire time we've been calling Angela, Angela, but Angela is actually Peter. So this is kill 10. We cut back to present day, only to find that Angela has actually killed Paul. And when I said that she had his head in her lap, I was being literal. She's decapitated Paul, and she's holding his head, and she's stroking his hair. And then she stands up once she realizes that the counselors are there. She's covered in blood, and the camera kind of pans out from her face, and you get a full body shot of her. And as this is happening, Ronnie, the camp counselor, he just said, oh my God, she's a boy. And then we as the audience, we as the audience see that Angela is in fact a boy with a penis. And then we get one of the weirdest shots in movie history. And it's Angela. This is the creepiest scene of the whole movie. Angela's just standing there. She is like gawking at them, like eyes wide open, mouth wide open. She's making this like deep, disturbing, like hissing noise. And she's just like staring at them. And so it's kind of going back and forth between a close up on her face and the pulled out shot with her penis. And it's just like a lot. And the counselors are shocked. It's so crazy because they're like more shocked by the fact that Angela has a penis than they are by the fact that like Paul's head is rolling around on the ground at her feet. But the movie then pauses on her face and it turns green, and then the credits start to roll. And that is the end of the movie. It was quite a plot twist.
It was intense.
It was intense.
That ending, it's like, what?
I know. If you've never seen this movie and you go into that ending, I could see how people in 1983 were like, bro, what the fuck just happened? That's crazy. It was very, I think, for 1983, this was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Very original.
She fucked Paul up.
She did, but that's what you get for being too forward. You need to ask before you just kiss a girl.
Like, yeah, just take off all your clothes. You never take off all your clothes before you take hers off. That's your version. Rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake.
I get naked. You get naked together.
Right. Because now look at you. Anything could have happened to you.
Anything could happen to you.
Poor thing. He didn't get the opportunity to learn. So, just some facts. So, the Rotten Tomato score for this movie is an 81% critic. And it's pretty high for this 1983 horror film. And a 60% audience. And IMDb, it's a 6.2 out of 10 with 36,000 reviews. And so that's like pretty good, right?
I think so.
I think so. So just a couple of facts. So there's a few things that we didn't really get to talk about the first time just because we wanted to get through without spoilers. But The movie makes a lot of things seem really ambiguous because they want to get to that big ending. And then also they're trying to make it really like a whodunit. And, it comes down to like, is it Ricky or Angela? Right. And so we get that scene where Judy's dying, and it wasn't supposed to be this way, but it is in fact Ricky that's standing in the doorway for that scene. But it's not because Ricky is supposed to be the person that killed her. It's because the actress, Felissa Rose, that actually plays Angela, her parents, her mother specifically, they were very involved with her when in the making of this movie because she was only 13, this child actress. And so they never wanted her to be involved in any actual killing scenes, nothing that was too adult or too aggressive. So for scenes like this, it was in his contract. So the actor, Jonathan Tiersten, that plays Ricky, his hands would be used whenever you'd see the killer's hands. So when that cold cock on Judy's chin, that was like Ricky's hand. Exactly. So that was Ricky's hand. And for that scene where he's in the doorway in Judy's room, that is Ricky with a wig, but it's supposed to be Angela. And it's only Ricky because they kind of have similar builds, like similar stature. But if you're watching this movie and you see it and you're like, oh, that's Ricky, that must be the reveal of the movie. It's not the reveal of the movie. It is supposed to be Angela. It's almost like a goof, but it's not really like their fault because in 1983, I think they couldn't tell who it was.
Right.
So that is like something that I wanted to ask you in the beginning. That's another thing that people might notice. When the two kids, like when one dies in the beginning, in my opinion, it's pretty obvious what kid lives, right?
Right.
Like,
I agree.
It's the little boy. Because you see the back of his head, you see him swimming. It's not the little girl. Even though the little girl did have a shorter haircut, it's like pretty obvious to me that it's the boy. So that's like another weird thing. I wish that they hadn't shown that.
They just showed the boat going towards them and then just like cut to something else.
We could have seen the one fucked up life vest, and that would have implied that like one of the kids died, but I didn't really like that. And then earlier we were talking about that scene where Angela's like really staring at Judy, but we didn't want to spoil why. One theory that I had, it's like we understand that Angela really likes Paul, but a part of me has always felt like, because Angela is a boy, I've always felt like Angela was also attracted to Judy. I think that Angela had never been around girls. Yeah, like especially a girl with like boobs, So
many them titties.
Exactly. And so I think in some way Angela was like staring at her. I think just because she's kind of in awe, like she's like, wow, those are what boobs look like. That's like what a girl is supposed to look like. But also I think she might have been like, I feel like attracted to her, but she doesn't want to. She's really confused, right?
Well, yeah. I think part of it was just like, because her dad had a male partner and then she was raised as a girl. So it was kind of like probably all new to her.
Right.
She's still very young. She probably liked Paul and Judy.
Yeah, she probably liked Paul and Judy. And it's like at the point where they're all going through puberty, right?
Right.
And so that must have been really hard for Angela.
It was hard, all right. Penis.
The penis was hard. And so I do have to say, so a lot of people watch this movie and they say that they think this movie is transphobic.
This movie is not transphobic to me.
In my opinion, it is not transphobic. And Felissa Rose, the actress that plays Angela, she also doesn't think the film is transphobic. She did a recent interview, and she just said, I feel as though Angela was a typical adolescent trying to find her gender identification and sexual orientation. And I thought that was exciting for 1982. It was ahead of its time. And I definitely agree with that. I think that all of this was very much ahead of its time. But I think to call it transphobic, and I definitely don't want to offend anybody. You know, I'm not saying, because I am not trans, therefore I know that I can't tell people like what to be offended about and what not to be offended about. But this movie is not about a trans kid, right? It's about, if anything, I would say that the movie speaks to like the detrimental effect growing up in the wrong body has on someone. You know what I mean? Like being forced to live in a way that you are not.
Okay.
Right? It's not because Angela's trans that she's doing this. She's being kind of psychologically tortured. She went through this traumatic event, and her crazy Aunt Martha is like making her grow up as a girl, and she's been fine up until this point, but now she's experienced bullying. It's really the bullying that has pushed her over the edge. It's not necessarily like the fact that she's a boy that's pushing her over the edge, although I know that like her psychological state, like that does have a lot to do with it, because it's not normal, right, for somebody to throw sand at you and then you like hack them to death.
Especially when they're like 5.
Right. So yeah, we didn't talk about that, but that is supposed to be like a fun fact. Those little kids that died, the 4 campers that she like axed to death, she did that because those are some of the kids that like after Judy and Meg threw her in the lake, those kids were laughing and throwing sand at her as she was walking away. And so the director actually said that he regretted doing that because up until
That's
that
crazy.
that was really crazy, because up until that point he wanted every victim in the movie to like be an asshole and for there to be some level of like retribution for Angela, right? It's like, it's totally understandable that she want to kill Artie because he's like a sexual predator. And it's like, you know, we get it. She killed Meg, and we get it. She killed Judy. We get it. Billy, Kenny. Those are people that were like bullying her. These were literal children, right? And so the director said that he thought that this level of retribution that Angela showed, it was really disproportionate to like what they did.
Yeah. I just think about like my little niece, and she would be like, "I'm trying to help you dry off."
Yes, like imagine like a 7-year-old, like, and then to get to hack them to death, that was
Right.
a lot. But I think
That was
at
a
that
lot.
point she had totally snapped, right?
She was fucking nuts at that point.
Right.
I think she just Paul's nice to her. She killed her dad.
Yeah, she killed him really horrifically. But I mean, he did like betray her, and it was like her first time opening up to someone, so I could see how that would like set her off.
She got a lot of use out that knife.
She sure did. That was another thing that we didn't get to talk about, was why would Angela have that knife, right? Like, how would she get that? Because the only people that knew where it were like Gino, the camp counselor, who hid it. And then, you know, like Ricky would have known where it was because Ricky watched him hide it. And so I just always thought that that was like a little weird that Angela would find that. I mean, she would have had to have been like digging around in the room.
Oh, probably because she was by herself. She needed a weapon. She's like, I need a weapon. Shit.
Oh, what a find, right? To find that fucking knife.
Right.
She used that knife the rest of the movie. So, what do you think? Hit or miss?
I think it's a hit. I think everybody should watch this movie.
I agree.
I think this is a funny ass movie.
I agree. I think this is a hit. And I definitely think that if you haven't seen it, I apologize for ruining the ending. I know that I went into it. I didn't go into it blind. I knew what the ending was going to be. But that doesn't make it any less good. Every time I watch it, I'm always like, damn, that shit was crazy. So I definitely recommend it.
It's like, damn, shit.
Exactly.
She was a boy the whole time. That's why she didn't take a shower.
Yes, so that comes up a few times. She never showers when the other girls are showering, which makes sense, right? Because that would stand out.
Do you think that when, like, she got naked and Paul was naked and then she got naked, he was like, hey, you're a dude?
I always wonder about that. They make it kind of a point to show that he still had a smile on his face. So I don't know if he ever saw the penis. If she killed him before she got naked or what.
I don't know, because I was just like, I wonder what made her just kill him. She's like, oh, well, you gotta die, dude.
I think he was I think he was going to die. I think she invited him down there to kill him. Honestly, I think after, huh?
She got a little bloodlust.
I think she just wanted revenge. I mean, he made out with Judy. I think to her that was like the ultimate betrayal, right? Because this girl has been a bitch to me. Exactly. It was too much to bear. And then he just kept coming around trying to apologize.
And you told her I was approved?
Right. Right. And she was just like, I mean, I just wasn't ready. Like, that was fucked up. So I think she was always going to kill Paul. Like, after he did that, I think that it was already decided. So just one more little, like, fun fact. So the climactic scene in the movie was actually accomplished using a nude college student. And he was actually wearing a mask that was cast from Felissa Rose's face. And that's why, like, if you see the scene, it really is like a creepy scene. Like, the thing that she's doing with her eyes and her mouth, like the way that she's gawking at them, and then they made this cast of her, and he's like wearing a wig with this mask. It really is a creepy scene, like the look on her face. And that kind of explains why. He said that he had to get drunk to film the scene, and originally there were talks of creating a strap-on prosthetic for Felissa Rose to wear, but the idea was obviously scrapped because her mom was like, absolutely not. So that's why it actually is a boy's body. Felissa Rose, obviously the actor that's playing Angela, is a girl. She's a 13-year-old girl.
He looks so like almost like muscular.
He's super like lean, right?
Lean. I was like, that shit look like a whole dude.
It is absolutely a dude. So he doesn't like honestly, he doesn't really have the same like physique as Angela at all, because Angela has a very feminine physique because it's a girl, right? And that's why in that scene where Judy is being killed, that's obviously a boy. Those shoulders were kind of broad.
It's those man-ass hands.
Right. But yeah, all of that was just supposed to be like the smoke and mirrors, the red herrings, because it was Angela the whole time. But, you know. So yeah. So that was Sleepaway Camp.
As always, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Did you get that on film? So please just follow and like and subscribe. All right.
Bye.
Bye.